habits of unprofitable traders?
There are so many things. Ego, letting the ego get in the better of you is a big aspect. I think if I could bring down, again, I'm going to talk about money management and risk management. And again, I see experienced traders who have been able to make a living out of it, but are insufficient in those areas. So they're not able to exceed their performance. They're not able to move to that top level because their approach isn't robust enough. I talked about personality types. Every personality type has strengths and flaws. There is not one perfect one. The most successful people are the ones that I think are able to leverage those strengths and are able to somehow bring or layer some approach onto their trading which helps them to curtail their flaws or their weaknesses. When traders aren't able to curtail those flaws, then they have problems. As people will tell you, being over emotional. If you're an emotional person, you can't do anything about that. Some people aren't emotional enough. They don't pick up the emotional cues in the market. I think ego, more than anything, is probably the biggest challenge for traders. And everyone has an ego. Everyone has a time where the ego gets in the way and it stops them. I call it's the invisible hand on the steering wheel. Now, if I was to go through what are the failures of the traders, I could go through every different personality type and tell you what are the failure issues for those traders. But I would just say everyone has them. Maybe a good example would be, perhaps to bring up a good example of someone. There was a trader in a bank we worked with who went to a hedge fund. We didn't work with him at the bank, we worked with him at the hedge fund. He was a very, very good trader at the bank. It was a great macro views on the market. Nearly every view he took on the market seemed to be right. And this particular hedge fund had a very, very high expectations of how his performance was going to be when he went round there. Unfortunately, he came out in their bottom 25% of their PM's portfolio managers. So we started working with this guy, and it was clear for him there was issues around discipline. So as we say, nearly every single call he got in the market was right. His ability to monetize those calls was seriously lacking. So we had to layer on discipline. He had to layer on discipline to his approach. And we worked with him on that process, adding the discipline. And we had to add a tool because he wasn't going to do it without a tool. This is why I say you have to have something that, discipline wasn't natural to him. So we put a discipline that gave him risk management, gave him money management, it managed his emotions. And the first year he did that, he became their #1 portfolio manager. So it's more about curtailing the weaknesses and enabling him to leverage his strengths. Yeah. So, and we've had a number of cases like that.
You observe a trader at work, you start to identify where you perceive to be the problems, and then you just suggest, guide and implement tools to sort of make them improve.
Yeah. I mean, we don't sit with them at work. We'll go into an interview, into a meeting room, we'll interview them, we'll do some psychometrics. We run some very advanced psychometrics which identify their risk profile, their risk personality. It identifies their overall personality. We'll get them to complete a questionnaire about their trading. And we'll also get guidance from their managers and maybe some of their colleagues, because third-person guidance is far better than first-person guidance. And we're able to build a picture up of who the individual is, where their challenges are. And then we'll go into a meeting with this individual. We'll have a few meetings with them where we'll interview them. We'll ask them about some of the findings that we've got from the questionnaires and the psychometrics, and we'll ask them how they're applying that within their work. They'll bring in situations, we'll explore them with them, and then we'll work with them almost to empower them. So we might make suggestions, we don't tell them how to fix it, but our view is that if they can own the solution, then it's going to be far better than us telling them the solution. So we work with them to find the solution. We might make suggestions, we don't tell them they have to do it. And quite often they kind of, at first they don't buy it, and then they'll come back for the next session and they'll say, I'm going to give that a try, and then they'll come back and they'll say, that's working for me a little bit, I'm going to continue it. And then finally they've come back and they've fully owned the solution.